Impact COVID-19 pandemic on the tourism sector in Indonesia. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, my name is Fariz Fadlurrahman. I'm here because I'm going to present about journal articles. You can find me at my Instagram at rahmanz1_. And about the journal article. The journal title is The Impact COVID-19 Pandemic on the Tourism Sector in Indonesia. And the author, Horas Veyady Purba, Rita Fathiah, and Steven. And the research is from Journal of Economics, Accounting and Business Application, Volume 3, Number 1, March 2020, page 389 until 401. Abstract. The impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the tourism sector in Indonesia has resulted in a constriction of the Indonesian economy, or created negative economic growth, and created very bad conditions for the tourism sector in Indonesia. The data used is quarterly time series data before and after the COVID-19 pandemic, 2018 until 2020. The secondary data used is air data. The results of the study show that the COVID-19 pandemic is detrimental to Indonesian tourism and has negative implications for the magnitude of the potential loss of Indonesia's GDP on tourism and the Indonesian economy. Functional term. These are the keyword I use: pandemic, COVID-19, tourism, and economic growth. Introduction. This phenomenon is caused by the emergence of a new pandemic virus in almost all countries in the world, namely the coronavirus. Indonesia is also facing the same problem, where the COVID-19 pandemic has had a wide impact on Indonesia's economic activities. The COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in a decrease in the number of tourists. The tourism support sector, namely restaurants, hotels, and retailers, has also been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. This article discusses the analysis of the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the tourism sector in Indonesia. Literature review. Tourism in Indonesia is called pariwisata, which comes from the two phrases, specifically pari and wisata. Pari can be interpreted as many, usually circular or complete, while tourism can be interpreted as a trip or visit. Based on the tourism definition, it can be seen that the tourism is a temporary and short-term movement of people to destination outside their place of residence and not for earning a living, but for fun and leisure, with the following characteristic. 1. Two locations are interrelated, namely the area of origin and destination. 2. As a destination, it must have an object and a tourist attraction. 3. As a destination, it must have tourism facilities and infrastructure. 4. Implementing trips to the destination are carried out temporarily. 5. There is an impact, especially on the destination area in terms of socio-culture, economy, and environment. Result and discussion. 1. Global COVID-19 pandemic trend. The United States is in the highest position in the world, with the number of confirmed COVID-19 people reaching 26,547,977 people, and the highest death rate in the world at 40,55,735 people. The second largest position confirmed by COVID-19 was India, with 10,826,363 people, and followed by Brazil with 9,447,165 people. Meanwhile, the second highest death rate after the USA was Brazil, which was 230,034 people, followed by Mexico with 164,290 people. From this data, it can be seen that the highest fatality rate in the world is Brazil, at 8.6%. Several countries in Europe were also affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, and a relatively high number of cases of deaths. 2. The trend of the COVID-19 pandemic in Indonesia. Indonesia is included in the high confirmed group of COVID-19 and is in the 70th place in the world, namely 1,147,010 people, with a death toll of 31,393 people. This data shows that the confirmed curve for COVID-19 is not sloping and is even still rising with an exponential increase. In October 2020, there was a trend of a daily increase which decreased from 4,850 people to a low of 2,618 people. The average daily increase in October is 4,007 people per day. However, daily new cases continue to increase, reaching an average of 6,479 people per day in December 2020, and in January 2021, an average of 10,684 people per day. And in February, it continued to increase to reach 11,441 people per day. This requires controlling the handling of COVID-19 and economic recovery, which will be increasingly priorities in 2020. 3. The impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on tourism. The impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on tourism is seen in the drastic reduction of international tourist visit and travel service in 2020 compared to the previous year. In the third quarter of 2020, the number of visits by foreign tourists to Indonesia only reached 475,000 people. Foreign tourist visits in the third quarter of 2020 slowed slightly compared to the previous quarter, which contracted by 1.2%. The number of foreign tourist visits also experienced a deep decline of 86%. The stagnation of foreign tourist visits during the last 2 quarters was influenced by the COVID-19 sector in Indonesia and a new wave of infections in Indonesia's main source countries of foreign tourists. Travel activities at the national level have also been affected by COVID-19, as well as large-scale social restrictions or PSBB in several regions of Indonesia. In the third quarter of 2020, the government began to loosen the PSBB policy in some areas. This has a positive impact on the tourism sector in Indonesia. Impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on air transport. The equation model built shows an adjusted R-square value of 0.7904, where 79.04% of the diversity of air transport variables can be explained by the COVID-19 pandemic independent variable. Besides that, the calculated F value is 42,472 and is greater than the F table 5,117. It means significant, meaning that the model build is quite good. This shows that the COVID-19 pandemic harms air transport with a regression coefficient, and this is supported by the value of 6,517 and greater than the table of 2,262 or significant. Impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on hotel accommodation. The equation model build shows an adjusted R-square value of 0.5692, where 55.92% of the diversity of accommodation variables can be explained by the COVID-19 pandemic independent variable. The COVID-19 pandemic harms accommodation with a regression coefficient, and this is supported by the T-stat value of 3,942 and greater than the T-table of 2,262 or significant. Tourism implications on Indonesia's GDP. The negative and significant impact on tourism in Indonesia needs to be resolved because the Indonesian tourism industry is a strategic sector that has strategic and broad aspects, including increased foreign exchange earnings, creating jobs, stimulating the growth of the tourism industry, and is also related to tourism development in various countries. With such a wide scope, as well as the multiplier effect of tourism on the pandemic, it has hit the Indonesian tourism industry very hard. Tourist visit declined sharply to reach 89% in 2020, indicating that Indonesia's tourism is growing consistently. Conclusion. Until now, the COVID-19 pandemic is still increasing exponentially. Based on the regression equation model built, it can be concluded that COVID-19 has a negative and significant impact on tourism in Indonesia, which is tested through the air transportation and hotel accommodation data approach, which is significantly in line with the National Economic Recovery or PEN. The findings of the study also calculate the impact of the pandemic on the decline in the tourism sector and its implication for GDP, where the tourism sector's economy on GDP fell sharply. The Travel Analysis Center aims to provide users with a clear picture of how to manage operations and opportunities to reach potential visitors. In line with solutions, the tourism sector will grow and at the same time increase the share of the tourism sector in increasing Indonesia's GDP. I think that's all. Thanks for your attention. If you have a question, you can find me at my IG at rahmanz1_ and my email farizfadlurrahman@gmail.com, and you can also type your question in reading LMS. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.